Could you just tell us a bit about what your life was like before you got into the darkness and then emerged from it, please?
Well, I grew up in the Baptist church. My dad had me and my brother in the Baptist church from diapers. And, just to skip over some of the Satanism, though, uh, for right now, when I was about 15 years old, every sermon was about money, about giving money to the Baptist church. And, it was by the time I was 15, I had heard, I don't know how many sermons. I've been there since diapers, and it's 52 sermons a year, times 15 years. I mean, that's quite a few to hear. And every one of them was about giving money to the Baptist church. Let me give you an example. Jesus wept because he saw the future state of the Baptist church, and we didn't donate enough money. And I told my dad, if they bring up money in one more sermon, don't bother about coming to pick me up. I'll just walk home because I'm tired of that. And he's like, what, why would you leave? And I said, because that entire Bible can't be, every verse cannot be about donating money to the Baptist church. But that's what I'm tired of hearing. Every sermon, no matter what the Bible verse is, it could be Old Testament, New Testament, the book of Revelation, it could be Genesis. It's about donating money to the Baptist church. So me and my brother go to the sermon, and he says something else about money. And see, the thing is, in our town, it's a small town, and there's a radio station that covers the Baptist church service. And they record it and they put it, it's live on the radio. So it's a country music station, and my parents would tune into that. So they would listen to it every week. So they knew what I was saying was true. And I came home, and my mom said, my mother said, your father is really mad at you. I said, what's he mad at me for? I didn't make the Baptist preacher talk about money. And he could have called the Baptist preacher during the week. He had 7 days. He could have said, if you talk about money, my son will leave. Don't do it for this one Sunday. If he had gone one Sunday without saying it, the next Sunday I would have been back at the Baptist church again, because he went 1 week without saying it. But my dad didn't call him and say that. So I ended up coming home. And then my dad comes outside, all kind of mad. And he's like, you're the most irresponsible person I've ever met. I said, I'm the irresponsible one? You could have called the Baptist preacher and told him not to talk about donating money to the Baptist church. He could have said it. He could have changed his message. But none of that stuff happened. How am I the irresponsible one? 15 years of hearing about donating money to the Baptist church, I'm done. And I said, I've attended other Baptist church services, and they have the offertory, but they don't spend every sermon talking about donating money to the Baptist church. So why do we? So that was the last time I attended the Baptist church. I was 15 and never attended, I never went back. So when I was growing up, I had this burning desire, because I had seen horror movies, stuff on TV though. I didn't go to theaters to watch horror movies, but and a lot of horror movies from like the 50s or 60s. So things like The Blob or Creature from the Black Lagoon. I loved horror movies, and then there was a lot of stuff that included magic. And then at that time we had what was his name? Not David Copperfield, that was later. But there was another guy that practiced magic, and it was all sleight of hand.
Houdini.
Yes.
Houdini, was it?
Well, Houdini was dead by the time I came along.
Okay.
It was, but yeah, I was very fascinated with Houdini as well. And I can't remember this guy's name, but he was very much just into sleight of hand. And I asked my Baptist preacher and my parents, is magic real? But I mean, I'm reading comic books, and there's Doctor Strange in comic books, and there's other people that practice magic, and there's cartoons about magic. There's movies that have magic. There's even martial arts movies that have people that can levitate. So I'm like, oh, Doug Henning, that was the guy's name. So I just have a burning desire to find out if magic is real. Because if it is, I'm going to learn magic. And if it's not, I'm just going to give up on it. And why would I waste my time? But my Baptist preacher and my parents said magic is fake. It's false. That's nothing you can really do. Now, as a sidebar here, in the Bible, like in the Ten Commandments, for example, it says, thou shalt not steal. Now, it only says that one time, but it says it. Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not lie. Now, all of those seem like they're very important, but God doesn't spend a lot of time telling people not to lie. He says it in the Ten Commandments. So he says it one time. And all those things, they do seem very important, and I appreciate him telling me not to do them. But if it was impossible to tell a lie, thou shalt not lie wouldn't be in the Ten Commandments. If you could not steal, thou shalt not steal would not be in there either. If it was impossible to murder somebody, thou shalt not kill would not be in the Ten Commandments. So, we don't have a speed limit sign that says, don't go 700 miles an hour, because it's impossible to do that. Now, we do have speed limit 55, speed limit 60. In Montana, they have speed limit 80. And those are all nice, but nobody says above that, because we can't go 700 miles an hour. So if God's going to tell you not to do something, then you can do it. And in the Bible, there's 33 verses where God tells you not to do magical things. Why would he warn you against magical things 33 times if it's impossible to do it? I had somebody about 5 years ago say they would give me $10,000 cash if I could prove magic was real. So I invited them to my house, and I had my friend bring out the Bible, and I had him look up all 33 verses. And I said, if magic was impossible to do, God wouldn't warn you 33 times not to do it. That was 5 years ago. I am still waiting for my $10,000.
Uri Geller, some people have said, might be the name you were looking for.
That's another good guess, but it was Doug Henning. Doug Henning was probably only big in the United States. Uri Geller was famous all around the world, as was Houdini.
Indeed. Okay, so you said then, you rejected all of this money that was being called for in that church. What direction did that send you in next then, once you rejected that?
Well, when I was 15, I'd been a Satanist for a few years at that point. So
how did you begin that? Yeah.
Going back, I was 10 years old. I was in the 5th grade. And on the very first day of school, this kid came up to me and he said, meet me in the bathroom at the first break. And the first break is at 10:20. And you get 15 minutes, and you can go outside and play. You can chat with your friends. You can hang around in the school. You can read a book. You can do anything except leave the campus. So, and we didn't hear warnings about don't ever, if somebody says, meet me in the bathroom, don't go. We didn't hear anything like that. We're a bunch of innocent kids. This is 1976. So meet me in the bathroom at the first break. 10:20, I walk in the bathroom. It's the men's bathroom. And this is a brand new school. It's a brand new building. The bathrooms are huge. And there's about 49 other kids in the bathroom, boys and girls in the same bathroom. We've all been told, meet me in the bathroom at the first break. When we get in there, this guy says, okay, now we're going to turn out the lights. And we're like, how are you going to do that? Because at that time, these bathrooms had a special device to turn off the lights, and you had to stick in a special key that only teachers had. And some genius child figured out that if you unfolded a paperclip and stuck it in there, you could turn out the light. So we're going to turn out the lights, and we're going to chant a phrase a certain number of times. And if you do it right, the spirit of a burn victim will show up in the mirror. None of us are believing this. It's like, so I'm just going to chant something about Bloody Mary a few times, and I'm going to see the spirit of a burn victim. Okay. Yeah, this is believable. So first thing that happens, they turn out the lights, and some of these kids in here, we're all 10 years old. Some of the kids are not used to having the lights turned off. So they're getting a little apprehensive. And he's like, come on, it's just us in the bathroom. Now we're just going to chant this phrase a certain number of times, and let's see what happens. I'm thinking nothing's going to happen. So, or maybe somebody's going to jump out of a stall and scream and scare everybody. Whatever. So we chant it. All of a sudden, this demonic face, but I don't realize it's demonic. It looks like the spirit of a burn victim. The upper part of its mouth is melted, and it stretches down to the bottom part of its lips. And you can see its face is pulled back in a grimace, and has very sharp teeth in its mouth. But to me, as a child, I believed in the law of bulldogs. You may not know that law. Bulldogs are one of the ugliest dogs there is, but most of them are super friendly. So if, a bulldog comes up to you, there's no reason to run away from it. It's most likely just wants to be petted. It can't help how it looks. It was born with that face. It's not a bad dog. It just wants to be petted and loved like all the other dogs. And some people fear it because it looks ugly. So this person, if they died in a fire, obviously their skin is dark black and shiny, and their face looks like it melted. Well, if I died in a fire, my face might have melted too. So I'm thinking, but like I said, I was told it was a game. It's not really a game, it's a spell. You need a spell. To make a spell work, you need intention, repetition, and demonic presence. So you've got the people that have watched Harry Potter and read Harry Potter spells and tried to make them come true, and they say they don't work. Well, praise God, it didn't work. That meant there wasn't a demon present. Because I've also talked to people that say they've tried them and they do work. Actually, since we're on the subject of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling's a few years ago put a message on her personal website that said every time she deposited $1 billion Harry Potter check, she felt guilty because she was lying to the people. She believed that the Wiccan Church is the one true church. Gaia is the person they worship, and that she intentionally manipulated the minds of young people to believe magic was real so that young people would join the Wiccan movement, because most of the Wiccans are old and starting to die off. She also admitted on a BBC interview on Christmas Day 2019 that Harry Potter is satanic. It's difficult to find now, and it's in two places. There's an actual recording where it's just her and the guy John that's interviewing her, but there's another one that's on like a talk show, and when it's played, the audience laughs. The original version, there's no audience laughing. So anyway, I'm looking at this face. The 49 kids that were in there with me ran out of the bathroom screaming. I stayed in there because I thought, this is the most awesome thing ever. I said this phrase a certain number of times, and I saw the face. And now that it's there, it can see that I made it. I'm the one that conjured this face up. Now, I don't know what this person is. I don't know if it is.
Oops. This is getting really, here we go.
Okay, so what happens is you're on my phone, and I get a lot of phone calls. So when I get a phone call, it's going to go blank and I get a thing and you may not be able to hear me.
That's okay. Keep
All
going.
right. So remember that at 10 years old, you're not the sharpest tack. So when I see this scary face in the mirror, I have not tapped into a castle 3,000 miles away. I have not even tapped into the room behind the mirror. If I'm seeing the demon in the mirror, he's standing next to me. But I'm not smart enough to pick up on that. Then eventually, the school sent notes home, and our parents had to sign them and give them back that said, if your child is caught playing this game at school, they'll be suspended for 3 days. And I brought my note home to my dad in the den. And usually, when I give my dad a note, he takes it, signs it, and throws it back at me. He doesn't care what it says. He just figures, well, it's something else I have to sign, whatever. But today, when I took him the note, he reads it. And I was like, oh boy. He reads it. And then, my dad had been a U.S. Marine. So, in his usual loving tone, he asked me, have you been playing this game? And being terrified of my dad as I was, I told him the 100% truth. No. So that I wouldn't get caught at school and spend 3 glorious days with my dad, I started playing the game at home. Because whenever I played at school, the face always showed up. So I started playing it at home. What could the danger be in that? And every time I played, the demonic face showed up. Now, remember when I played it at school, it was like once a day. But now that I can do it at home, I'm doing it 25 to 50 times a day, as much as I can, because every time I do it, the face shows up. Then I turn out the lights, close the door, open the door back up, turn on the lights, do it again. And it keeps happening. Every time I do it, the face shows up. And I'm having a great time. Eventually, it almost feels like this is one of my friends. I mean, I can't really talk to him. He doesn't talk back. He doesn't seem to want to hurt me or do anything, but he always shows up. I've got friends that I call that aren't home, or friends that I try and make, arrangements to hang out with, and I can't. But this guy is reliable. And then I'm also playing Dungeons and Dragons at this time. All the older kids in my town play it. I like it. It's a math-based game. I'm a little math geek. So this sounds like a fun game to me. I'm always the wizard or the sorcerer in the game. Whenever I roll for anything else, like if I'm rolling to cross a chasm on a rope, I'm going to score between 1 and 14. So I might make it and I might die. But every time I do a magic spell in the game, I score a 15 to a 20. So my magic spell always works. Sometimes it works great. Sometimes it barely works. But it always works. And it doesn't occur to me that it's the magic itself. That's why I'm doing so well. I just assumed I roll really good for some reason when I'm practicing magic. And it's not real magic. I mean, it's like I'm doing a magic spell for light. Let's roll the die and see what I get. And I rolled an 18. My light's pretty bright. That's pretty good. But then, I have to roll to do something else that's not magic related, and then I die. It's like I should have kept doing magic. So I'm doing that, and then eventually, still 10 years old, and I start thinking, what if I did a magic spell in real life? Would it work in real life? Now, my Baptist preacher has told me no. My parents have told me no. All my friends have told me no. And I'm thinking, but what if I did a magic spell and it really worked? Knowledge is power. I would know something that they don't know. And that would be so awesome. My main intention was Superman can fly, but flying is levitation. What if I could learn magic and I could levitate my way to school? and I would pass all my friends flying there, and they can see that I can do something that should be impossible to do, but I can do it. And that gives me friends that I don't already have, but more friends. Maybe a girl would like me. Let's see what'll happen. Maybe teachers would respect me. So I do a magic spell. Now, I had looked them up in the library and I couldn't find anything. So I just did a D&D spell for money. And that was on a Friday. Saturday, I went out to play and I found a can of tennis balls with a $5 bill in it. Okay, this is 1976. Candy bars are 15 to 20 cents. Comic books are 15 to 20 cents. And penny candy is 1 cent. So if my dad pays the tax with $5, I can get 500 pieces of candy. I'm on top of the world. But somebody had to find it. It just happened to be me. So I did the spell again the next Friday. The next day I went out to play, and there were 2 people walking in front of me, 2 people walking behind me, and I found a $10 bill on the side of the road in the grass. Again, that's 1,000 pieces of candy or whatever else I can get for $10. But the people in front of me missed it, and the people behind me might have found it if I hadn't seen it. So this could have been a coincidence as well. So the next Friday, I do the spell again, but this time I do it in my bathroom at home. And I set up my magic spell on the sink, all my magic stuff. And I had a wad of cash. It was just $1 bills. But I did the spell. Halfway into it, I stopped it and I did the Bloody Mary chant. And then when the face appeared, I showed it. I had candles, I had a knife, I had a piece of paper with the spell on it. I had matches because I'm going to burn it when I'm done. And I hold up the cash. I'm trying to convey I'm doing a spell for money. And then I finished out the Bloody Mary chant after it was there. And I finished out my spell. And that was that on that day. And the next day I went out to play. And I was in this large unpaved parking lot. And I saw something shiny off in the distance. And I ran off to see what it was. When I got there, I'm looking all around. There's nothing shiny on the ground. But I see what looks like Monopoly money rolled up tight in rubber bands. So I put that in my pocket and I go about playing. Later that night, everybody's had their bath. Everybody's in their pajamas. Everybody's gone to bed. I'm in my bedroom with the lights out, but a sheet up over my head and a flashlight in my mouth, unraveling my treasure. It looked like Monopoly money because I had never seen a $100 bill. And when I unraveled everything, I'm worth $1,000. Keep in mind, everything I want is dirt cheap. Also keep in mind that in the 1970s, $1 was worth about $7 now. So my $1,000 is worth about $7,000 now. And with my penny candy being 1 cent per piece of candy, I can now buy 100,000 pieces of candy. I'm a fat little nerdy kid and I am on top of the world. You know, I can buy candy bars, comic books, record albums, anything. And if they sold it at Goodwill, which is like a secondhand store, thrift store, if they sell it there, I can buy it. And my mom would, give me $5 and tell me to go there and buy something nice. You could buy for $5, you could get a nice pair of shoes, a pair of pants, some t-shirts, sometimes a leather jacket. You could buy some really nice stuff, but I'm worth $1,000. And I filled my closet, filled my room. My parents had no idea what I had in my room. When I was older, I had something that looked like a glass vase in my room, and I kept flowers in it. And my parents didn't know that it was a bong and I could smoke weed out of it. It was dark blue and yellow on top. You know, the funnel going up was yellow, and the bottom, the base of it was dark blue. And my mom commented on how pretty it was. And she would sometimes bring me flowers to put in it. And they had no idea that I was smoking weed out of it. And we had these big windows in my bedroom, and they had a crank on them so you could open them up. And I would do that and blow the smoke out the window. So my dad was never aware that I was smoking weed. My brother as well with special needs. If you told my brother, don't tell mom and dad, but I'm smoking weed today, that'd be the first thing out of his mouth. But if you didn't say anything, he was not a tattletale. He was not a narc. He never told on me for anything that I did. I would sneak out sometimes at night and sneak back in. And as long as I didn't tell my brother, don't tell mom and dad, he never made a comment, never said anything about it. So I'm practicing magic and I'm on top of the world. When I was 11 years old, I became the victim of a sexual assault at school at the hands of a female teacher. I came into the bathroom and we had like 4 stalls. 3 of them were regular size, 1 was handicapped. I came into the bathroom and I can hear somebody breathing heavy in the bathroom. But I looked under the stalls, there's nobody there, there's no feet. So I opened each one of the drawers and there's nobody. And the last one I opened up was the handicap stall. And I opened that door and there's a woman sitting on the toilet with both of her feet pulled up on the toilet. And she's masturbating, but I don't know what masturbating is. And I'm looking at her vagina, but I had no idea that girls have that. And it looked like she had a wound of some kind. It looked like she'd been stabbed and sliced. I don't know what's going on. And she has me come in, lock the door. She ends up assaulting me orally and then has me laid out on the ground. She pulls off my pants and underwear and climbs on top of me. I have no earthly idea what she's doing. I just know that I'm not comfortable doing it. When she's done, she has me get dressed and she tells me, if I tell anyone this was my idea, I clearly enjoyed it. And if I tell anybody, the school will expel me and I'll go to prison and my parents will disown me. And when I get out of prison, which she made it all seem like it would happen in the same year, when I get out of prison, I'll have to get a job, rent my own place, pay all my bills, and buy my own food. Now, imagine you've got a teacher telling you that. You don't have the internet. You can't look this stuff up. Your parents have never told you about sex. So you're thinking, she's a teacher. She's clearly telling me the truth. I can't tell anyone. So when I got home, first thing is that I went to that bathroom to pee. I came back to class. I never peed. When the bell rung, it was my last class of the day. I still needed to go to the bathroom, but I was scared to go into any of the bathrooms because she might still be there. Or there might be another teacher that would do it. So I walk home. I urinate myself on the way home. When I get home, I put my clothes in the dirty clothes. My mom never mentioned it. And I feel so dirty and ashamed. I took a bath in as hot a water as I could stand. And I did that multiple days in a row. And that wasn't making me feel any cleaner. I thought about for a while drinking bleach, not to kill myself, just to clean myself from the inside out. But I read on the jug that it would be fatal if swallowed. So I couldn't do that. And I wasn't allowed to tell anybody. So I've got a counselor at school that I know that I can't tell the counselor at school because they work at the same school as the teacher. So I'll be found out and I'll end up going to prison. So the only thing that gave me comfort and solace was more magic. When that happened to me in the bathroom, I had zero control. Oh, my phone's ringing again.
That's all right. Well, we wait for him to come back. His links are in the description box. We've got his YouTube channel. And we've got his Facebook. Oh, looks like he's back.
Here I am. So
Thanks.
when that happened to me, I had zero control. There was nothing I could do. You know, she lied to me about what was going on. I have zero power. But when I did magic, I was at the top of my game. Every magic spell I did worked. I'm flush in money. I had so much money and I had so many things that, and my friends all knew my parents don't buy stuff like this for me. So they started asking me, how can they get the same stuff I'm getting? And I said, I could do something for you and get you the same thing, but you'd have to share it with me. You wouldn't have it if it wasn't for me. So I would do stuff for them and they would get anywhere from 10 to 25% of what they got. And I'm feeling I'm on top of the world doing this. I feel like I'm rich. When I was 10 years old and I was playing D&D, there was a kid my age that played with us. And he also went to school with us. And he also went to church with me. Now I'm 10 years old. He leaves. He's not in school anymore. He's not in church anymore. And he doesn't play anymore. So I thought he moved away. When I was 12 years old, he moved back. And he tells me that he plays D&D every weekend with a group. And they also believe magic is real. I know magic is real. So I decide I'm going to go check them out. Now, at my house, you get 3 meals a day and a snack if my mom's in a good mood. And that snack is probably fruit. But at this house, I could have as many meals a day as I want. You know, at my house, we ate at McDonald's like once in a blue moon. We had Burger King maybe twice my entire youth. We had pizza 5 times when I was a kid, but it was always a store-bought pizza. We never had Pizza Hut or Domino's. You know, we had other private pizza places, never had those. But at this place, they have a large barbecue pit in the ground. And anytime I wanted barbecue, they'd make it. If I wanted pizza, I just had to tell them and they'd go buy it. If I wanted Burger King or McDonald's, they'd go get it or they'd go get it and give it to me. Just like it's a treat. Anything I want at any time. You know, if I'm going to stay there for 8 hours during the day, you know, they'll feed me cereal or whatever in the morning. But for lunch, why don't you just have some potato chips if you want them? Have a burger. We'll have pizza for supper. Anything that I wanted was right there. At my house, my parents' house, we had a 26-inch console TV. I say this now in conferences, and kids look at me like they have no idea what I'm talking about. We had a TV, it was 26 inches, and it fit in a giant wooden box. And it was like 3 feet deep by 3.5 feet tall and like 2.5 feet wide. And it's made of wood, and my mother had me polish it every Saturday. And then when you turned it on, it kind of crackled and turned gray and then turned green. And eventually you saw the picture. When you turned it off, it would crackle and turn green. And you could stick your hand about a foot away from it and feel static electricity against your hand. And it would like crack. Sometimes it would hurt. Most of the time, it was just something you would feel. And I grew up with that. That was my TV. And then in mine and my brother's room, we had a black and white 13-inch TV. And as much as I hated the black and white TV when I was a kid, I wish I could get one now. They were so cool. So I'm attending this place, and they tell me I actually confessed to one of them what happened to me when I was 11. And they told me that what happened to me was atrocious. It should have never happened to anybody. But now I can get my power back. Another lie of Satan. We don't have any power. But I can get my power back, and I can do that anytime I want. Anybody that I want to have sex with, I can do it. Just point to the person I want to have sex with, or go over and take them by the hand and lead them back into a back bedroom. No one else can do that to me. If I don't want to do it, I can say no, and I don't have to do it. And then they said, here, let me show you some magazines. And the magazines had adults in it in different stages of undress or completely nude. And I looked at those, and then they showed me still photos of kids my age. Some of them a little younger, some of them a little older, but kids. And then they showed me magazines with nude kids in it. And then they showed me, like, at my house, you could watch a G rated movie, so a lot of Disney, or a PG rated movie if it had been vetted by my dad first. But over there, they had R rated movies. I didn't know that existed. Or an X rated movie. I certainly didn't know that existed. Or a triple X rated movie. And then they showed me triple X rated movies that had kids in it my age. Now, imagine, if you will, you go to, well, the hero back when I was growing up was John Wayne. So let's say you went to a theater to watch a John Wayne movie, and John Wayne is sitting next to you in the theater. That blows your mind. I mean, like, you don't even know John Wayne, but here he is sitting right next to you enjoying a movie. I'm at their house. They have this reel to reel projector, and they show me a triple X rated movie with children in it that are all having sex. And those same children that are in that movie are sitting all around me on the couch and on the floor. So I'm in the same room as the people that are movie stars that are having sex on screen. And I think that's the coolest thing ever. I'm friends with these people. They asked me if I wanted to be in these kind of movies, and they said I would be famous. And they showed me letters that were written in from all over the world. And it would be like a letter from Japan, and the address is in Japanese. Then they have another address that's in English. And then you read the letter, and the letter, the paper here in America, we have, if you're in the, say, fifth or sixth grade and older, then you use notebook paper that's tall with thin lines for your school. But if you're in first through third or fourth grade, you use notebook paper that's wide and has really thick lines. And so it would be on that kind of paper, sometimes written in crayon or magic marker, and words are misspelled. Now, it never occurred to me when I was a kid that that was really an adult or a pedophile writing that. We all thought it was children writing it. And they would list, all of us have a name that's not our real name on the screen. So it would show our picture and my name. My name was Tommy, or another girl, and her name was Mosquito Bites. There's another girl named Little Bit. So they have these names next to the picture so that you can write in and say, I want to see Tommy with a Little Bit doing these sex acts. And people, they let me read some of those letters. So, and they're coming from all over the world. It was like we got like letters from France and England and Germany, you know, and Japan. And, you know, I'm thinking that uh, children from all over the world are seeing these kids. These kids are famous. So they told me that if I wanted to learn how to do this, I would have to go to this house. I knew where the house was. I knew the girls there. They had an 8-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 14-year-old. And I had to take a letter there and hand it over to somebody. And they read it, passed it along to the sisters, and they have a brother. And everybody read it. And then it turned out that I was going to learn how to have sex with the 8-year-old first. I was 12. She taught me everything she knew for like 3 weeks. And then I went with the 11-year-old, and I was with her for about 2 weeks. And then I graduated to the 14-year-old, and the 14-year-old had me for about a week. And what happened when I was with the 11-year-old, her mom, when she got home from work, she would come in the back door, and the back door opened up, and I knew that's her mom. And I am terrified. I am laying naked in the bed with her 11-year-old daughter, She's teaching me how to do stuff. And I have met this woman and I've talked to her a couple of times in passing, but I'm thinking she's either going to kill me herself or she's gonna, we live 2 blocks away. She's either gonna call my dad or she's gonna go and tell my dad, and my dad will kill me. And I'm just thinking, this is the last day of my life. I hope this experience was great because it's not gonna be anymore. And she knocks on the door, and I'm just scared to death. I'm sure I'm pale as a ghost and I'm starting to sweat. And her daughter says, "Come in." And I'm thinking, why? Why? Do you want me to die? I don't say anything. I'm just laying there. And her mom opens the door, says like hi to me in a friendly way, and asks, "How's he doing?" And she's like, "He's great. He learned a lot with the younger girl, and he knows what he's doing, and just be like maybe another week, and then he'll advance to my older sister." And she's like, "Okay." She goes, "Do you want to stay for supper?" I said, "You'll have to call my dad and ask him." She's like, "Okay." So she goes there and she picks up the phone and calls my dad. I'm just expecting her to say, "By the way, your son's having sex with my 11-year-old daughter." But she was like, can your son stay for supper?" He's like, "Yeah, send him home after that." She goes, "Well, we're probably not going to do it till about 7 p.m. Is that okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's fine. That's fine." So just whenever he's done, send him home. So she hangs up. She comes back. She goes, "Yeah, okay, you're staying." And she closes the door and she tells me to have fun. And I'm just like blown away by this. I talked to my coven that I didn't know was a coven. I talked to them and they said that she's been in child pornography since she was 3 years old. She had multiple abortions and then she started having children. And she's got 4 children. And ever since, she has 3 daughters and 1 son, and all of her children were in child pornography from the age of 3 till now. And they're still in it. So, I was like, oh, I said, "I really thought I was going to be in trouble when you knocked on the door." She's like, "Oh, no, 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 it's fine. We've been doing this game for a long time." And so, I learned from them. And then I started performing on camera. It would take sometimes still photos of me, but normally we did videos. And we made still photos, which usually sold in a pack of 100. And they charged a pretty penny for those, but you got 100 photos. So they tried to make it seem worth your while. We also made loops, which is a 7-minute videotape, or we made vids, which are 30 minutes or less, or we made a movie, which is about an hour and a half, but could be as big as 2 hours, or we made compilation tapes. And a compilation tape is like only oral sex, but you get 4 hours of it. So it's all the different movies compiled into one, or whatever type of sex is what you want, times between 2 and 4 hours. And we get to see the finished product of what we made. And, all the kids that I'm doing with is right around me. Now, keep in mind that we didn't just do it in my hometown. We also did it in neighboring towns around us. And I would meet a lot of times girls and boys that I don't know where they're from. They just would come there. I didn't realize certain things. I didn't realize. I didn't realize that everybody that's filming us and that's helping us do these things and that are buying all of our material are all pedophiles. I didn't know the term pedophile back then. I didn't know what that was. If you'd have said these people are pedophiles, I wouldn't have known what that meant. I didn't know that it was adults buying it. It would have made sense because these things were really expensive, and most children could not have, afforded $3,000 for a movie. I also I didn't realize that some of the people were not there by their choice. And I didn't realize that some of the people that we met from out of town were being trafficked. That's another phrase I would not have known. If you'd have said these people were being trafficked, I wouldn't have known what that meant. Does that mean they drove here? I don't know. I don't know what trafficked means. They didn't even talk about, people got arrested for trafficking and drugs. Trafficking wasn't a word that was used on the news very often. It's not something that I would have known what it meant. There was a girl at one of the shoots that we did, and she was supposed to be 8 or 9 years old, but she looks like she was maybe 3 or 4 years old. She's a little tiny thing, and she's so thin you can see her ribs. And it was time for lunch, so I was given a sandwich and a bag of chips and a soda, and she's not eating, and she's looking at my food like she really wants it. And so I offered her some chips, and they told me not to do that, not to feed her. She's being punished. She can't eat until she performs well for a day. So, I said, okay. And then I asked her, like, there was no adults near me. I said, do you know where the bathroom is? And she said, yes. I said, have you been in a while? She said, no. I said, why don't you go to the bathroom? There's a window in there that's always open, and there's a screen in it that's broken. If you go in there, I'll go out to the car to get some more supplies, but I'll feed you a sandwich through the window. You're going to have to swallow it really fast, but, I think we can get away with it. So I told one of my people, hey, did you want me to go outside and get some more of the film? He goes, yeah, that'd be a good idea. Go ahead and do that. So, and I knew we had a lot of food in the car. So I went outside. We had like bologna sandwiches and peanut butter sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly. I knew not to hand her peanut butter and jelly because her breath would smell like peanut butter. But I handed her a bologna sandwich through the screen. She basically shoved the whole thing in her mouth and swallowed it. And then she said she was still hungry. So I gave her another one. And then I went inside with the stuff that I said I was going to get. And I told them that I had a hard time finding some of the stuff, which was true. I did have a hard time finding it. So it excused me from being out in the car for a while. She left from the bathroom, and now she's got kind of a bloated stomach. And I'm worried that we're going to get in trouble, but nobody ever said anything as far as I know. But there'd be times we'd see girls that we'd never see again. They'd come in, they'd shoot film with us. They're always friendly, but, it's like, what town are you from? I don't know. Where'd you used to live? I don't know. And we'd get answers like that. I was in a town, it was about 20 miles from my town, and there's a building there that's always boarded up, and it's locked up. We went in through the back door, and we're going to be shooting a bunch of videos that day. But I'm not being in any of them. I'm just a gopher. We have a room there that has lighting equipment, sound equipment, cameras, reel-to-reel film, regular cameras like still photo cameras, and they keep sending me in there to get stuff. As I'm going in and out, there's also a cot in there, and there's a little black girl laying naked on the cot. And when I went in there the first time, I saw her. I've never seen her before, and I said hello to her. And she smiled, and she spoke to me in a language I didn't know. Now, my mom was Hispanic, and I know it wasn't Spanish, and of course it wasn't English. I didn't know what language it was. And she said a couple of things to me, and I smiled and nodded, but I have no idea what she's saying. Then there became a line of men that went from the back door all the way to that door, and the line of men has probably 30 to 40 men in it, and they're going in one after another having sex with this little black girl. Then I keep going back and forth to get, whatever these people are sending me in there for. And these men just keep sleeping with her and keep sleeping with her and keep sleeping with her. And then this woman goes in there when I'm getting stuff, and she puts a tourniquet on her arm and gives her a shot into her vein. I don't know about people doing stuff like that, so I'm thinking she's getting medicine or something. She leaves, and then I go in there a few more times, and this girl's eyes roll into the back of her head. She drops down to the bed, she drools out of her mouth, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, something might be happening here. So I went back and I told the adults, hey, this is going on. So they came down, they stopped the men from going in there. At this point, there's about 7 men left. She goes in there and she checks the girl out, and she says she died. She's gone. And then the first man said, does that mean we can't sleep with her? That mean we can't have sex with her? No, you can keep going in there and doing that. So the 7 more men go in there and sleep with her after she's died. Then we had a police car show up outside, and I ran and got adults again. And I was like, I don't know what this means, but we just had a cop car show up. And they're like, okay. So they went back and they let the cop inside. He's in full uniform, and he comes down to that room and he grabs the girl, throws her on the floor. There's like this small carpet on the floor, like a little throw rug. And he wraps her up in that, throws her over his shoulder, and he says, I'll take care of it. And he walks out the door. My parents got, our town newspaper came out once a week. And then they also got, there's 2 cities near us, about 60 miles in either direction. And my parents had subscriptions to those newspapers. So for almost the rest of the summer, I kept looking in the newspaper for a young girl that was found dead somewhere. And I never found that. And back where we lived in the Everglades. So they could have fed her to an alligator, I guess. Or we also had, I think, a hog farm nearby. So they could have fed her to the hog farms, to the hogs. But, I never found any evidence of a dead girl being found. And at some point, while all this is going on, this older kid ran up to me one day and he said, you're in a satanic coven, right? And he burst out laughing and took off running. And I laughed it off. I mean, I've seen the creepy movies. When you see a creepy movie, the creepy music plays when the bad guy's on the screen. Or, I don't know if did you guys ever watch the Adam West Batman show in the 1960s?
Yeah, with kapow, bish, bash.
Right. Yes. Okay. So when the Riddler, the Joker, the Catwoman, the Penguin, when they're on the screen is tilted to the side because they're crooked, they're dishonest. When Batman is on the screen with Robin, the screen is upright because Batman is upright and just and truthful. So I'm seeing every once in a while somebody at a sleepover in a dark robe, a black robe. I would ask them what that was, and they would get up and walk away. I'm thinking, Satan is supposed to be the bad guy. But my parents are the no police. That the Bible is a bunch of things you're not allowed to do. And the whole Bible is thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. And then my parents, hey, there's a new movie coming out Friday. Can I see it? No. The Moody Blues are coming to town. Can I go? No. Dad, can I? No. Dad, no. Eventually you just look at my dad. No. But over there, we're going to go see this movie on Saturday. And then when that's over, we're going to go see the Moody Blues at night. Anything I wanted to do, I could do. And anything that I wanted to do, I needed not ask my parents. I just needed to go over there and ask them. My Baptist church taught me that Jesus defeated Satan on the cross 2,000 years ago. So Satan's no longer a threat to anybody. And that Satan is afraid of the Baptist church. Now, it's odd that Satan is afraid of the Baptist church but he attacked God on God's own turf. And then Saint Michael opened up a can of whoop ass and kicked Satan out of heaven. If he's brave enough to attack God in God's home, don't you think he would be brave enough to attack the Baptist church? But we were taught the opposite of that. So if Satan is afraid of the Baptist church and Satan is no threat to us, Satan is giving me everything I want because he wants to be my friend. He's afraid of me. I'm 12 years old. This is my mentality. But I don't know that this is truly a satanic coven. So I went to an adult member that I trusted and I said, hey, you're going to laugh. I heard this was a satanic coven. Crazy, right? And I expected him to, slap me on the back and tell me to go play. Tousle my hair and say, that's ridiculous. But he didn't say any of that. He said, it is. And my heart sunk into my stomach. I was like, am I a member? No. Would you like to be? And now this is the point of realization because I'm addicted to porn. I love porn. And I love the porn you can buy at the gas station, which is okay if you can't get anything else. But the porn that I watch there, it stars my friends and me. You got to be 18 years old to buy porn. I like smoking cigars on occasion and a pipe. It was just fun. You got to be 19 to buy tobacco. I'm still 12. And I drink booze. My favorite drink is a screwdriver because it looks like orange juice, but you can get drunk on it. You got to be 21 to buy booze. I'm still 12. I take illegal drugs almost every day, and I get them here for free. If I quit, I'm going to have to buy them someplace else. I don't even know where to buy them. And I'm having sex almost every day, but definitely on the weekends. And I'm starring in these movies. And if I leave, I'm going to lose all my privileges that I love to do. Everything that I love is going to be gone. And I'm not going to be able to do this stuff anymore. What do I have to do to join? And he told me there are 13 steps involved to becoming a Satanist. And I had done almost all of them already. All I had left to do was to slice my left thumb, bleed onto a document, and sign it in 3 places. The blood of Jesus washes away all sin, but not mine. And I signed my name to it. Jesus died for everyone, but not me. And I signed my name to it. And on the final page of a 5-page document, I agreed to sell my soul to the devil. Since we're on this point right now, do you think it's possible to sell your soul to the devil?
Yes.
Why?
Well, I was raised Catholic, and that's what I was taught.
That it's possible to sell your soul to the devil? When I do my conferences, I usually have an assistant that sits next to me because I ask questions of the audience and then they tell me how many people raise their hand or say yes or no. So when somebody's sitting next to me, I ask them what kind of car they own. And whatever they tell me, I then ask the audience, who here can legally sell me this person's car? Nobody raises their hand. And so I ask, why not? And they say, because it doesn't belong to us. Right. That's the same reason you can't sell your soul. You may have heard that Jesus died for you. Jesus paid the ultimate price for your soul. You don't own it. You can't loan it. You can't lease it. And you certainly cannot sell it. You may have heard that Satan is a liar. I am here to confirm. If Satan says good morning, get a second opinion. But I was 13 years old when I signed this document. And if you ask any 13-year-old, they know the answer to everything, and you know nothing. And I knew beyond a reasonable doubt that I was selling my soul to the devil, that I could really legally do it. And I did. I signed the document in my own blood. Then we have a ceremony where I'm dressed in a white robe. It signifies you're losing your innocence. And I get baptized in a giant vat. It's shaped like a demon's head, and it's full submersion, and it's filled with human blood, pig's blood, and human urine. I come up out of that. I go into another room and I take a shower. And I come out wearing a black robe with the cowl raised, and it shows that I've been baptized into a world of darkness. I sit in a chair and I'm handed a wheel about this big with a crucifix in it. You spin the crucifix upside down, signifying human sacrifice. I put my hands on Jesus' arms and they read the document I signed the night before. Then I hold up my thumb to show them it was my thumb that I sliced open. And then I break the arms downward, denouncing Christ. The image you're left with looks like a peace sign. And then they say that this document will be forever entwined with that in a vault, and that you now have a giant party celebrating that you're now a Satanist. And they handed me the robe that I came out in was a black robe with an inverted red pentagram. But the robe I wanted was the red robe with a black inverted pentagram. The red robe, the black robe is a basic member. The white robe is an initiate, and the red robe is a mage, M-A-G-E. It's the official magic practitioner of this coven. And we had a party afterwards. And yes, you are celebrating that you're now a Satanist, but the reality of the party is that you're celebrating that one day you're going to die and go to hell. And I wasn't positive that hell was real. I wasn't positive that God really existed. And I really wasn't positive that Satan was real. I was just having a good time. I can smoke, drink, have sex, take drugs, be in films. I can do anything I want. As long as I don't tell my dad any of this stuff, I'm golden. I can do whatever I want, which is the coolest thing for me. So at 14 years old, I had this man came to me and he said, all right, we're going to have a sex orgy with a 19-year-old girl and all the male members between 12 and 15. I've been having sex for, a couple of years. So what? And he says, and the reason for it is so that she gets pregnant and then we do an abortion. I was like, cool. And then I went home to look up the word abortion meant because I had no idea. The last time I heard the word, my mom and dad were talking to each other and they whispered it. So I thought, this has got to be a dirty word. And it turns out it is. It's the dirtiest word there is. But I couldn't look it up. I had a Webster's dictionary that's about a foot thick, and the word abortion wasn't in it. So I went to the library, still couldn't find it, but they had two books that both were about abortion. But both books are about an inch and a half thick. I survived at high school with cliff notes. So it's like you're going to read, instead of reading a 500-page book, you're going to read the 20 pages in these cliff notes. And I am not reading an inch and a half just to get the definition to one word. So I went back to my coven and I said, I heard I'm going to be committing an abortion in like 9 months. I don't know what that means. And they said, oh, you're killing a baby in the womb. I was like, is that legal? Oh, yeah. In the womb legal, out of the womb murder. So they gave me a scalpel They said I could use a knife, that'd be fine, and that they wanted me to practice on a ball of Play-Doh or an apple or an orange. But then, after practicing on that for about 6 weeks, and it seemed easy, somebody told me it's not a real baby. It's just like a clump of cells or some tissue. It's no big deal. All you have to do is get blood on your hands. You're going to start a hex, go over, get blood on your hands, go back and complete the hex, and you'll be fine. It's no big deal. You're not murdering a baby. Get that out of your head. So when the event occurred, there's 13 high priests and priestesses surrounding this woman that's on like a birthing bed or a birthing table. Her legs are up in stirrups. There's a bunch of men at the far end of the room that are praying and chanting to Satan to keep them safe. And there's a bunch of women nude on the floor on their knees, chanting our bodies ourselves and swaying back and forth. Then I'm standing in the middle with the abortion doctor and an abortion nurse, and I'm waiting for this lump of cells or some tissue to be scraped out. And they talked about they would suck it up with a vacuum cleaner hose. I was like, all right, whatever happens, happens. But it turns out it's a late term abortion. The baby is fully developed and they deliver at breech. So the entire body comes out except the head. I don't know how graphic you want this to get because it's a late term abortion. I don't know if you even know how that takes place.
Just keep going.
Do you want me to describe it?
Well, I think we've got to understand what happened here.
Okay. So in a late term abortion, they deliver the body but not the head. Then they take a sharp pair of scissors and they jam it up into the base of the skull where the neck meets the skull. It's a very soft place. They jam the scissors up there and then they open them. So it opens up the spot so it's wider. Then they take that vacuum tube and they stick it into that hole and they suck out the baby's brains, which causes its skull to collapse in on itself and the baby dies. Then they took this device that looks like a pair of tongs with teeth and they ripped the baby apart, throwing the body parts out to the women on the floor who cannibalize the baby parts. All the skin, the entrails, everything that's not bones. They eat that. They rub the blood all over themselves, and they have a sex orgy. My body feels like all my blood drained away, and I just had pure adrenaline. My legs were shaking. I felt 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I felt like if you'd have given me a lake or a canal to walk across, I could have done it. I could do anything in this moment. I felt all powerful. However, I did realize when they delivered that baby that they lied to me. That's not a clump of cells. That's not some tissue. That's an actual baby. And if they'd have delivered it, it would have lived as long as somebody would have taken care of it. So I feel amazing. When I'm turning 18, I'm graduating from high school. And I wanted to go join another satanic coven at college. But I knew we didn't have the internet back then. For you to find out where the next satanic coven was, it's not like they're going to advertise it in the town square. One of the few places that I knew they were advertised is if you went to an adult bookstore and bought a local swingers magazine, they would sometimes list satanic covens in the back of them. But I don't know if you've ever been to one of those places. They're skeezy. There's people sitting out in the parking lot masturbating in their car. He was like, I don't want to see that on my way to trying to find out where a satanic coven is. I don't want to, and I don't want to see anybody that I know. So I go to school And my first day of school, the first day the school is open is a Wednesday. And when I went in on Wednesday, they had the student union. The student union was open. So it's all these political or fraternities or sororities advertising for what they want. And they're trying to get students to join them. So, it's the whatever the fraternities and sororities are, student union. And then there's the satanic student union and the Wiccan student union. I'm like, oh, satanic coven right here. Okay. So I went to them a couple of times. And these are a bunch of kids away from home for the first time, no adult supervision. And they think that Satan is all about getting drunk, getting stoned, and having sex. I've been doing that since I was 12. I don't need a satanic coven for that. And these guys would have a party on a Saturday, and Sunday they would go to church. Not to split it up, not to do damage at it. It was just Saturday night was their club meeting, and Sunday was church. Then when they did their party, they would do like, okay, I'm going to guzzle this beer in one shot. Then I'm going to take the empty can and circle it around my head 3 times, and I'm going to throw it into a trash can. And if it lands there, I'm going to get a brand new truck tomorrow. It's like, that's not a magic spell. What are you doing? And so it was just fake. So I called my first coven and I said, hey, I read a book during the summer and it talked about a satanic coven that was out to rule the world. And they mentioned something about the Illuminati, which I don't know if that's real. And they mentioned a place called Bohemian Grove. Don't know if that's real either. And this coven was supposed to be gigantic. Where can I find them? And so they said, here's a phone number. Call them, wait a little bit, give them your real name, because when you go, they're going to ask for your ID. Okay. So I called the number and waited a few days and got a phone call back. And they told me about a building. There's going to be this giant warehouse and a big party. I'm going to have to park about 2 miles away and bring my ID. And this is the coven that I've been talking about. So I went. Sure enough, I had to park 2 miles away and walk my way back. And I knocked on the door. This guy opens it. I tell him my name. He pulls out a clip.
Oh, looks like he'll be back in a second, folks. He's got a call, but his links are in the description, his YouTube channel, his Facebook, and this is a harrowing content warning, folks. If you are watching this, don't have any sensitive people in the room because it is something else. All right, he's back.
All right, so the guy opens the door and I go inside. And it looks like it's a warehouse. It's bigger than a super Walmart. And there's about 10,000 people in there. And they've got tables set up with chips. And they've also got tables set up with actual sandwiches or with pizza or burgers and sandwiches. And then there's other tables set up that have water and soda. Another table that has like beer. Another table that has wine. A table that has hard liquor. And then another table that has like weed and mushrooms or that has pills. And there's a table that has syringes or cocaine. And I'm thinking, okay, that's different, but I don't want any of that stuff. And there's all these people. There's couches and recliners and love seats and people just sitting around and talking. There's also a DJ there and a dance floor. In the back, there's 5 giant beds all pushed together and a bunch of people, men and women, having sex with each other on the beds. They invite me to do that, but this is like 1984. The AIDS epidemic is in full swing. There's no way I'm getting close to that with those beds. So as I'm walking around, and I notice there's some people in the back wearing nice clothes, they kind of look like they're in charge, but I don't really feel comfortable going up to them. And then when I was at a sleepover when I was 13, One night I got up at like 3 in the morning to go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, and I saw this guy walking through the house. He was wearing corpse paint on his face, had a tuxedo on with a top hat and carrying a wand. He looked like a member of KISS wearing a tuxedo. And he sees me and he winks. And then he walks into the kitchen. I walk to the bathroom, do what I've got to do when I leave. I thought about going into the kitchen to ask him some questions, but I just, whatever. The next day when I woke up, I said, "Hey, I saw this guy in the house last night. Who was that?" And they said, "Oh, you dreamed that. That never happened." Oh, okay. So I'll just store that in the back of my head somewhere, and one day I'll find out. So one day happened when I was 18. I'm at this party and I see a similar looking guy walk past. Now, not the same guy, but a similar look. And I grabbed the guy next to me and I said, "Who is that? What is that? How can I do that?" And he says, "Well, who was in control of your coven before you came here?" I said, "We had a huge coven, 110 to maybe 150 members at any given time. And we had 13 high priests and priestesses." He goes, "Oh, okay." We have 1.1 million members worldwide, and we're run by a CEO and a board of directors. And the people that are in charge of our official magic are called high wizards. I was like, "How can I become a high wizard?" I don't know. I know that you have to get Satan's attention, but I don't know how to do that. And I don't know anything beyond that. Well, I know that abortion gets Satan's attention. I know in my first coven, they said, if you give Satan what he wants, he'll give you what you want. And I knew he wanted abortion. So I thought, all right. So I started hanging out with the high wizards. I approached the guy that was there and I said, "I would really like to do your job. I don't know everything that it entails, but I think it's super cool. And I heard that you do assisted abortions, and I've done them at my previous coven. So how about this? You pick me up the next time you go do one, and I'll set up your altar. And if you like the way I set it up, I can come to all of your abortions and I'll just set up your altar for you." And so yeah, it wasn't that long after that, that guy gives me a call, comes by my house and picks me up. And he has an entire entourage with him. And one guy carries in this huge, it's like a suitcase, but it opens up and it turns into an altar. And then all the stuff that's on the altar is also in the suitcase. And I set it up how I would set up my own altar. And when he came over to look at it, he was like, "Did a good job. Yeah, you don't have to do anything else. This is good." So he did that. And I started working with not just him, but a couple of other high wizards. Then when I was almost going to turn 21, I got a notice in the mail that I was being called before the CEO and the board of directors. And I know that some people that do that are never seen or heard from again. So, being paranoid as I was, we had a 2-week cooling off period in Florida to buy a handgun. So I went in and purchased a Sig Sauer 9mm, and then I bought a gun belt, and it's a clip belt. It holds a bunch of clips. And I bought all the ammo I needed to fill the clips. And when I got dressed that day, I was wearing that down my pants just in case they decide that this is the day that I'm going to die. I ain't going out like no sucker. So I brought my stuff ready to shoot back. And they invited me into a room, had me sit in a big leather plush chair. And this guy pulls a rope on the far wall. This black curtain moves out of the way. And there's like 9 high wizard costumes on the wall. And he said, "These are just ideas. You can make one of these, choose one of these, or we can custom make you one." Then they showed me these 24-inch by 24-inch glossy photos. And they said, I can choose one of these ideas for face paint, or I can choose my own look. But whenever I work, I have to be in this uniform. In case you're wondering what that looks like, if you go on YouTube and look up Pink Like a Pill official video. She has a high wizard that appears in her video 4 times. Now, in case you're thinking, well, it's probably just some guy that was hired for the video and they don't even know each other. There's a photo somewhere on the web that shows Pink on the red carpet with her arms around a high wizard. I'm thinking it's the same high wizard from the video. And the 3rd and 4th time you see the high wizard in the video, they're conducting a ritual or a spell. So I get chosen to be the high wizard. They show me this high wizard handbook, which is as hokey as it sounds. And I open it up, and the first page, it says, no one can tell you what to do. And I was like, really? They said, if somebody pays the coven millions of dollars for a magic spell, you can say no. When they do that, they can ask you to do it. They can suggest you do it, but they can't tell you to do it. You can turn down any magic spell that you want to. They also say that as soon as you're hired, the first place you go is Bohemian Grove. And I didn't know what that was. They took me there my first time. And I was 21 years old. This would have been 1987. And when I was there, I met Ronald Reagan. I stuck my hand out to shake his hand because I voted for Ronald Reagan. And he pulled his hand back away from me and wouldn't shake my hand. But, you know, I look like the high wizard. It's okay. By going there, I met both Bushes. I met Bill Clinton in 92. I saw Barack Obama in 94. He wasn't even, nobody knew him, I think, in 94. He was walking past with George Soros. And they told me when he went past, that man's going to be president one day. And I thought, nobody voted for Jesse Jackson. Why would they vote for him? But he won 2 terms in a row. And while I was doing all this, I worked for the Illuminati for 12 years. And I made about 1,200 rock stars. If you were a rock star from 87 to 99 and you weren't already famous, I'm the reason they're famous. I signed. Now, when I say rock star, that includes rap, hip hop, country, opera, any genre of music you can think of. I made those people rock stars. I helped make about 1,200 rock stars. Have you guys ever heard how rock stars are made?
No, please tell us.
Okay, so it's called a warehouse deal. It'll happen in either Los Angeles or Hollywood. Everybody that knows that they have to go there to become famous, they've heard it from their director, their producer, their agent, their publicist, another rock star. Somebody has told them, you need to go to this warehouse, go there on this day, and sign up and just answer the questions appropriately, and you could become a rock star. So I go there. I have my uniform. I'm looking like the high wizard, and I have an entourage with me. And this is obviously before computers, or before laptops, tablets, and things like that. We have our cell phones at that time could be used as a weapon. They're huge and heavy. So I go in this room or this giant warehouse, and some of them have individual bins, but most people are out in public on the floor. And I walk through and I ask, who wants to be famous? Everybody raises their hand. What are you willing to do to be famous? And this is where people draw a line in the sand, because some people will say, I'll do anything to be famous, but nothing with animals and nothing with children. Now, that's not who Satan wants. Satan wants the person that's willing to jump in the mud and be drugged through it. You're willing to do those things, he'll take you. But the people that draw that line in the sand, no, we're not interested. We just keep going. and people are taken off the list, and it's like you have to come back in a certain number of months. And I keep doing that. I keep doing that. And I'm passing up sometimes hundreds of people that all say that. I'm not willing to, I'm not willing to do something with a relative, not willing to do something with a child, not willing to do anything with an animal. And it's like, okay, well, come back when you are. And I just keep going. There was a guy in there that said, he told me up front, I cannot sing. I cannot dance. I cannot write a poem. I cannot write music. I cannot write a song. All right. But I'm still thinking Satan can do something. So what are you willing to do to be famous? Anything. I was like, you got to give me an example of what anything was. And he said, if you put me in a room with a 3-year-old naked girl and a horse, I'm going to have sex with at least one of them. I'll have sex with both of them if I think that's what you want. You're our boy. So while he's there was somebody, we had a Dr. Seuss book that had been there for years. And I had somebody bring me that book, go through the building, try and find that book, bring it back to me. So he brings it back to me and I give it to him. And I said, read me that. So he starts reading a Dr. Seuss book. And just before it rhymes, he closes the book and says, I don't get it. I thought, wow, you can't even make a Dr. Seuss book rhyme. So I give him a card. It's called a Tier 2 card. On one side is the New York skyline. On the other side is a phone number. I said, you call the number on this card, do whatever it is they ask you to do, and I'll see you on MTV in 6 months. Whatever he did, I saw him on MTV and VH1 about 3 months later, singing and dancing in one of the most popular boy bands of the 1990s. Now, I've been told by multiple singers what it is you have to do. And you only have one of 4 options to do. So when you go to there's a hotel in Los Angeles. It looks like a bright, shiny hotel, except that there's almost never any cars at it. They use it for this purpose only. So you go there, you park your car, you go inside, they ask you for your name, you have to give your ID, then they have you sit down for a while in the lobby. Then when they're ready, they make you a key to go to your room. They tell you where your room is, and they give you the key, and you take the elevator up, you go up, and you use that card to get in the door. When you go through the door, up above the door is a camera that faces down. On the table facing you, it's a white diamond-shaped table. On that table is a list of instructions that start at the top of the table and come all the way down to the bottom. There's also a glass bowl with white envelopes in it. The paper tells you your job is to pull out an envelope, open it up, and read what it says to do, and hold it up to the camera behind you so it can see what you have to do. If you don't want to do that one, then you put the contents back in the envelope and close it back up, put it in your back pocket, pull out another envelope and do the same thing and hold that up. If you decide neither one of these options is something you want to do, then you have to leave the room, go downstairs, and hand both of these envelopes into the men behind the desk. At which time you'll be informed, and you're seeing it here in this paper as well, but you'll be informed that you cannot try this again for 3 years. And the reason for that is you made it this far. And if you decide these things are too gross, you don't want to do either one, then for the next 3 years, you see all the new rock stars come out that could be not as handsome or not as pretty as you, putting out songs that aren't as good as yours, but now they're living in what could have been your mansion. and being given millions of dollars that could have been yours. And now they have tons of girlfriends or boyfriends that could have been yours. And they're driving around in a hot car that could have been yours. You could have had all this, but you decided not to. And now you're watching however many rock stars there are in your genre of music having everything that could have been yours, but you turned it down. So a lot of times when that 3 years is up, about half the people decide, I'm going to do it this time. And the other half just learn to live without it, and think, I'm never going to do this. This is the grossest thing ever. So I'm going to give you the 4 things you have to do. And I'm going to give it in the order of what I think is the least gross to the most gross. So the first option, oh, and also, if you pull an envelope and you decide, I can do that one, there'll be a number or a letter on the envelope that's also on a door in the suite you're in. When you go in there, you have 3 hours to do this task. And during that time, you are filmed and they take still photos of you. So if at some point you decide, I'm going to reveal to the world what it is that I had to do, well, they've got video and still photos of you doing that. So, you might think that you're throwing the Illuminati under the bus, but you're as well throwing yourself under the bus. So the least gross to me, and this is because when I was a kid, we had some of the grossest medicine for colds and flus ever. And I learned that if you tilt your head back and hold your nose, you can just gulp it and that's it. So this one is a large cup that's given to you. It holds about 14 ounces and you're drinking human vomit. And I thought, all right, I could do that. If I held my nose, I could just swallow it all. And it most likely is going to come right back up. But you don't have to drink it again. You just have to do it the one time. The next option is that you have to eat a large bowl of animal feces. I'm pretty sure I could not do that. I mean, it smells like crap because it is crap. And I'm not sticking that in my mouth and swallowing it. But they say you have to empty that bowl. I don't know what size a large bowl of animal feces is, but to me, any size bowl would be too big to swallow. The next option is you have sex with animals. It'll be dogs and cats. Again, you have 3 hours to do this, and you sleep with as many of them as you can in 3 hours. I'm thinking that having sex with a cat would be very dangerous, and you're going to lose a lot of skin. And the last one is you are put in a room with trafficked children, 12 and younger, and told to have sex with as many of them as you can in 3 hours. Now, if you wonder what happens to people that decide they're going to tell what happens and see what happens to them, think Chris Cornell or Chester Bennington, because both of them a few years ago decided that they would tell about the pedophile industry within the music industry. And they were both murdered, but it's called being suicided out. So it makes it look like you committed suicide, but in reality, you were murdered. So I made 1,200 rock stars that did this, but I understand that they still do this. So think of any rock star you know. I know of 4 bands that didn't have to do this. And how I know of these 4 bands is that every 90 days, they knew where we were going to be for the next 90 days. So any band that had ever signed with my coven, which meant they also signed with a high wizard through the Illuminati, all those bands you got to go to for free. The only 4 bands that I didn't get to go to for free was U2, Bruce Springsteen, Pink Floyd, and Metallica. Everyone else I got to see for free. Them I had to pay for. And it's possible that one of them could have sold their soul after I left, but I left in 1999. All of them were already millionaires many times over by the time I left. Why would you sell your soul now? You're already famous and rich.
You got a few people asking Zachary whether this is the kind of stuff Diddy was into, and that's how he got his rise to fame.
I think that yeah, P. Diddy would have done that. And my wife says that every time there's a famous person in the news that's caught in a scandal, I look more and more legit. I mean, he's in there for human trafficking and rape and crossing state lines to have sex. And, I've also heard pedophilia, and that's one of the steps in becoming a rock star is having sex with children. But everybody does. There's about 12 years ago or 13 years ago, something like that, I did a talk at the cathedral in Venice, Florida. And I gave a talk like this, and it was youth and adults there. When I was done with the talk, it was time for the Q&A. And all these parents put their hands up, and they got called on. And this woman said, "Not Taylor Swift. She's innocent." And I said, "Well, she might be innocent now, but give her some time. She'll eventually be singing songs about promiscuity and practicing magic out in the open and being satanic out in the open." And they're like, "Oh, no, no, that's never going to happen. She's innocent. She's this, she's that." And I said, "Okay, this is the deal I'll make with you. Whenever she comes out and starts doing these things that I'm talking about, there's like 1,000 of you here. So how about each one of you sends me $1,000? You're all this is a rich church. There's a lot of people with money here. $1,000 to a lot of you is going to be like nothing. But if all 1,000 of you send me $1,000, I'll be a millionaire. So how about that?" Now, there was an article that came out, I think last year, and it was in LifeSite News, and it was an interview with Father Dan Real. He's the exorcist in Nashville, Tennessee. And he said that no parent in good conscience can take their child to see Taylor Swift in concert because she practices magic on stage, and that all the demons that are attracted to magic and mortal sin will show up there waiting to see who's there not in a state of grace, which only a Catholic can get into. Protestants can't get in a state of grace except at their baptism. And then as soon as they sin, they don't have a way to go back into it. So they're going to look for all the people that are not in a state of grace and attached to them. And then you're going to take that demon home with you. And depending on what the family is into, you're either going to have some serious oppression or possibly even possession. And, that's an exorcist telling people they can't take their kids. I'm still waiting for my $1 million, by the way.
So, Zachary, how did you extricate yourself from that lifestyle?
Well, I had eventually got tired of what I was seeing. I did 146 assisted abortions. I split a bunch of churches. I did like all the evil under the sun. And after a while, it was like, I'm not necessarily tired of sinning. I'm just tired of what I'm seeing. There's no prostitute that's so pretty that I want to have sex with her anymore. There's no drug that makes me high enough that just a little bit can do it. There's not enough alcohol to make me drunk. I'd almost die of alcohol poisoning by the time I got intoxicated. And I just want to see something different. So I plot my escape. I make an appointment with a satanic doctor, and I get on the highway. But instead of getting off on his exit, I kept going. I had plotted my escape for 8 months, and I had pilfered money out of my own account. They watch. I have 2 accounts. I have my own account, which has like $265 in it on average. And I also have a satanic account that has about $87 million in it that I'm not allowed to touch. It's just supposed to be there. If I travel to a different town and join another church and buy a house there, the bank president is going to see that I'm worth $87 million. I'm driving a Lamborghini Diablo, and I'm buying the biggest mansion, the biggest, most ostentatious mansion in town. So he invites me to join his Baptist church. There's an entire story to go with that, but that $87 million is not mine. I can't do anything with it. If I took money out of that, they would find me. So I'm pilfering money out of my own account very slowly. I'll go to the gas station and take an extra $10 out. I'll go buy some groceries and take an extra 20 out. And I just kept doing things like that for 8 months till I thought I had enough money. Because remember, at this time, by now, I believe in hell. I believe in Satan. And I know that for me to leave this coven and for me to no longer be the high wizard, I have to die. Now, I can commit suicide, I can be murdered, or I can die of natural causes. But no matter which way I go, I end up in hell. I don't want to go to hell. So I plot my escape. I kept going. I ran out of gas. I hitchhiked to the next town. I sold my car for scrap. And I got a Greyhound bus ticket to go into Canada. Now, the reason I chose Canada is because I had only done like 1 or 2 spells there. It didn't seem like there were very many Satanists there. So I thought that'll be safe. But at the border, I got rejected. And Greyhound said I could go anywhere I wanted to go. So I opened up an atlas, a US atlas, closed my eyes, put my finger down, and it landed in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I got a ride to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I lived off the grid for 1 year and then back on the grid for 2 years. I bought a car and I tried to get back into Canada. And I got rejected at the border again. And I'm being told, one of my friends called me and he said there's a border crossing near Burlington, Vermont, where you can just drive straight across and there's no guard. Right, I'm going that way. So I'm almost there. I'm about 2 hours away. And I am so tired, I can't keep my eyes open. So I pulled over at a rest stop, spent a couple of hours sleeping. Except when I woke up, it was the next day. And, it's
Looks like he's on the call. I got a call coming in, but his links are in the description box, folks. His Facebook and his YouTube channel. If you want to subscribe or if you've got any questions, he'll be back in a second. Just wait it out. And of course, trigger warning, content this evening has been particularly hard hitting. All right, he's back.
All right. So I wake up, I take care of myself at the rest stop, and I drive back. It's only 2 hours away as the border crossing. As I cross over, this guy pulls me over, searches my car inside and out, top to bottom, and he describes how that he's been trying to get this job for 3 years.
Oops, looks like he's froze again. He'll be back very shortly. And I know there's tons of questions coming in, but Zachary speaks at length, folks, which is what we love when someone gives us a detailed story, a detailed life story. And I think he's back. Let's go.
All right. So this guy is telling me today is his very first day on the job. And I'm thinking, oh, God's got a sense of humor. If I would awake, I could have driven straight across yesterday and been safely in Canada. But now this guy's got me and he rejects me. He sends me back into the States. So I'm worth $18 and I have half a tank of gas. And I drive to Burlington, Vermont. I got a job my first day in town at a bar called Nectar's. I got hired as the dishwasher. And I told him I was willing to do anything. And the guy asked me if I knew how to wash dishes. And I said, I can wash them at home. He goes, same concept. So I got a job as a dishwasher. Then I got a job as a doorman, which is the same as a bouncer, but they call it a doorman. And then I got a job as head of security. Then I got a job as head of security and then the GM of another bar. And then I got a job in the mall at a athletic shoes and apparel called Finish Line. And that was a manager in training. Then I got a job at Sunglass Hut as a GM. And then I got a job in Piercing Pagoda, a jewelry store in the mall. And that was, again, I was the GM. And at this time, I'm doing magic every single day. I am as addicted to magic as a heroin addict is to heroin. And I can't stop. And I did a magic spell one night. The next day, I went to work. And this woman comes up. She wants to buy a pair of gold hoop earrings. And I present her with the best pair based on what she described. And I'm just about to close the deal. And she says, actually, I'm shopping with my daughter. And when I'm done, I'll come back and I'll buy these. And I know when most women say that, they mean, I'm going to go find it cheaper someplace else. But she had an honest face. I knew she was coming back. And sure enough, 3 hours later, this woman comes back. We do the deal. And I've got her money. She's got the gold. And I give her the receipt. And I say, if you call the 800 number on this receipt and take a survey, you might win $1,000. She goes, that's great. I've got something for you too. And she reaches in her purse. And I'm thinking, oh no, she's going to pull out a Jack Chick pamphlet, tell me that I'm sinning, and he dropped to my knees and begged for forgiveness. All this stuff I can't do because I sold my soul to the devil when I was 13. And instead, she pulls out this cheap gold-colored piece of tin. I mean, it is so thin that if you held it up to the light, you would see the light right through it. And then she says the weirdest thing I've ever heard. Now, remember, I partied with rock stars. You give a rock star somebody that can write songs and poetry, unlimited booze and drugs, and they will say some strange stuff. Like, if you doubt this, turn on your radio to any top 40 station and just listen to what people say. Back when I escaped from Satanism, the #1 song of the year was Bow It to Bob by Kid Rock. It's like, this is his breakout song. He's about 24 years old. Here's this guy, this skinny white boy dressed like a pimp, bouncing around all over the stage with a black drummer that's got blonde hair. And he's singing, the chorus is, bow to ba, to dang, diggy diggy, up jumps the boogie. And it's like, that's the best song you got? That's your breakout song? That's the #1 song of the year? That chorus beat out however many other hundreds of songs came out that year? That was the best one? You're kidding. But what she told me was weirder than that. She said, the Blessed Mother's calling you into her army. And I thought, Blessed Mother, Isis, Gaia? I have no idea who the Blessed Mother is. I grew up Baptist. Mary gave birth to Jesus. Do you know what else she did? Nothing, because all she did was give birth to Jesus. We didn't hear about her and Joseph fleeing to Egypt. And we didn't hear about Jesus' first miracle because he turned water to wine, and Baptists don't believe in drinking. I never knew that that was his first miracle until I became Catholic. So I have no idea who the Blessed Mother is. And then she says, it's very powerful. Protestants don't bless anything. So this woman represents some female deity cult. I'm not interested because so many covens are connected. I don't want to join a coven and then find out that it belongs to my original coven. But I'll take whatever she's got. I'm gonna feel of it, and I'm gonna know that it's worthless. There's no power to this. This can't touch me. There's no mystique to it. I'm going to take this blessed miraculous metal in my hand and I'm going to squeeze it, because back then, if you'd have given me a feather and asked me, what do you feel from that? Well, this had a protection spell put on it. Or you hand me an onyx and I would feel it and say, oh, this has a death spell attached to it. So I know. Or you hand me something and I say, your friend bought this at Goodwill and made up a story about it. There's nothing with this. So I know whatever I feel is going to be worthless. This isn't anything. This blessed miraculous metal can't touch me. So I know that I'm either going to toss it on my floor or slam it on my counter. And I'm going to tell her it's worthless. And if she wants to get offended, that's fine. And if you want your money back, that's fine. And if you want the regional vice president's phone number so you can call and complain, I make financially my day, my week, my month, my quarter, and my year. My boss is never going to believe that I truly offended you. She's going to think, oh, she didn't like your hair. She didn't like your tie. She didn't like your cologne. She didn't like your suit that day. It's going to be something like that. It's not you personally. And it's not going to affect me. So I stick my hand out and she drops it in my hand and I clench my fist around it because I'm going to tell her this stuff and I don't care what she says. And instead, when I clench my fist around it, my store and my mall completely disappear. They're gone. I'm standing in a darkened void. And this woman, Marianne Wickman, starts telling me about the magic spell I did last night, and that's of the devil. And I've split over 100 churches, and that's of the devil. And I've committed over 100 abortions, and that's of the devil. And she says about 8 or 9 other things, and everything ends with, and that's of the devil. When I first went to this spot, I wanted to hit her with a magic burst, an energy burst, and just knock her back. But at this point, I don't think that's a safe bet. There's generally between 2 and 5 high wizards in the world, but that number could be as low as 1 or as high as 10. I did not have the magical ability to hand somebody a worthless gold-colored piece of tin, transport both of us to a darkened void, and know all of their sins. Her magic is stronger than mine. And I could have been the only one high wizard out of about 7 billion people, which would be a power trip and a half for me. But knowing that her magic is stronger than mine, I am terrified of this woman. And she tells me again, the Blessed Mother is calling you into her army. And instantly, like a grace from the Holy Spirit, I knew that that was the Mother of God, which is a very strange revelation for a former Baptist to have. We would rather shoot ourselves in the face with a shotgun than say Mother of God. And when I realized it was the Mother of God, Mary showed up. She smiled at me, a smile I knew I did not deserve. I was acutely aware of my 146 assisted abortions. She took me by the hand and she turned me around. And Divine Mercy Jesus was standing behind me. I had no idea what Divine Mercy was. I just know I have these rays of light shooting out of his heart, and they're going around me and over me and under me and through me. And in that instant, I knew I did not sell my soul to the devil when I was 13. I knew that Jesus Christ was my Lord and Savior. I knew that all my magic, my occult, my New Age, and my Satanism was false. And I knew everything Catholic was truth. And the Blessed Mother told me my job was to help her end abortion. And I opened my hand, and I was back in my store, back in my mall. And this woman, Marianne Wickman, is still talking to me. And she tells me that she is Father Joseph Whalen's personal assistant, that he's the busiest priest she knows. And he's so busy, he doesn't even have time to talk to her. And while she's talking,
I think that Zachary's phone might have gone because he's been frozen for a bit. It went down to audio only. We're almost at 2 hours. I'll just write this down, see if we can get him back. Either he's got a call or his phone's completely gone. Sometimes before your phone goes, it drops the video down to audio, which is what we saw, which is why I wasn't, I know people saying he's frozen. There was nothing we could do about that, I don't think. We'll just give it a little bit, see if he can come back. If he can't, we will set this up for part 2. Put 1 in the chat if you would like us to do a part 2 with Zachary quite soon to keep this going. Put a 2 in the chat if this is all too much for you and you would rather not do a part 2. So, looks like we want a part 2 with Zachary. All right, so what I'll do is I'm going to be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. UK with Barbara Boyd, never been on the channel before, talking about the blood sacrifice of the Russian-Ukraine war and the drone swarm in Russia and what might happen next if we're heading for World War III. And then we've got Kit Clarenberg on Friday talking about Keir Starmer's male models appearing in court on Friday. Yeah. And I think this video will take you to the one we did earlier today now when I finish it. So stay tuned if you miss what we did with Murray, the advocate out of Australia today about Virginia's funeral and more about Virginia's husband.